everyone, welcome. If everyone can mute their cameras, and if you want, you can find that cheese plate in the chat and pin my screen if it's not already full screened. I'll keep it easier because we have a lot of people in the chat today. This is awesome. 100 people. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to that Naked Wines cheese class. My name is Marissa Mullen, and I am the founder of That Cheese Plate and creator of the Cheese by Numbers method. And today we are making a beautiful Naked Wines themed cheese plate. If you've come to one of my classes before, you kind of know how this goes, but I will give you the rundown. This one is a little bit more of an intermediate class, I would say. We have a design that we're making that's very different from my usual style, but I always love a good challenge. So we're going to do some fun cucumber wings and cut cheese in different ways, which will be a lot of fun. But a little backstory about myself, if you don't know me, I started That Cheese Plate in 2014, actually. It was a passion project in college. I love cheese, I love making cheese plates with my friends, and I made an Instagram for fun. Over time, I was working in the music industry, actually, and it was a really hectic job. I worked at the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, so long hours, not a lot of time for self-care. And my version of self-care was making a cheese plate with my friends and just, getting into the present moment on the weekends, having natural light come into my apartment, playing music, and just settling down and making this cheese plate. So with cheese plates, for me, they're more than just something that you eat and you share. It is kind of like an art form or like a meditative activity. So the Cheese by Numbers method is this method that I created to take the stress out of building a cheese board. So it exists in 6 steps, which you can see on your little card that you got. Mine's a big card, piece of paper. So we're going to work through the Cheese by Numbers method as we build the plate. And then we're going to pair these cheeses with amazing wine from Naked Wines. So before we get started, the wines that I will be pairing today, if you want to get them ready, are the Michaud Sauvignon Blanc. And then we have the Miriam Chenin. So 2 whites. And then we have the Chris Baker Pinot Noir. So those are the 3 that I'll be using. And you can pour yourself a glass of any wine to start. I'm going to pour myself a little glass right now. I know we have a few winemakers in the chat too, so welcome. Love your wine. So fun. Alex Farber, if you're in the chat, I'm pouring a little glass of the Chenin to start. Perfect. And just to give you guys a quick little overview again of the Cheese by Numbers method. This is my book, That Cheese Plate Will Change Your Life. This came out in May of 2020. This was a labor of love. I always wanted to write a cookbook, didn't really know how or where to start. And in 2018, I messaged a friend who had a book out, not about cheese, about her dog, and just asked, hey, how do you write a book? Where do I start? And she introduced me to her book agent, who took the idea. We pitched the idea out to 25 publishers. Every single person rejected it. They said I didn't have enough followers or press. So went back to the drawing board, and that's when the Cheese by Numbers Instagram account was born. So you might notice that I have 2 Instagram accounts. One is That Cheese Plate, the other is Cheese by Numbers. I made this an Instagram account just to kind of save the idea there, for just to show that it works, that this method is something. And a few months later, the Rachel Ray Show found it, and I went on Rachel Ray, and everything just kind of exploded from there. So I ended up quitting my job in music in 2019, writing this book all throughout the summer of 2019, had to deal with a COVID release date, which wasn't the best at the time, but honestly, this is what people needed, just making cheese plates and spending time with friends and family. And 2 days ago, it charted on the Wall Street Journal's bestseller list, a year and a half after publication, which is nuts. So thank you all for being here. Thank you if you've supported the book. But to go into a little in-depth, here's an example. So here's that goat plate with all goat cheese. Flip the page. That's the Cheese by Numbers method and step-by-step. So the method, step 1 is cheese, step 2 is meat, step 3 is produce, step 4 is crunchy items, step 5 is dips, and step 6 is garnish. So we have all the steps here. Step 5, dips. I suggested honey for our little map, which we're not going to put on the plate, but we can put it on the side of the plate. And we will start with step 1, which is the cheese. So open any wine you want. Everyone cheers the camera. Happy Thursday. We're almost to Friday. And we will start making the plate. So good. Okay. I'm going to switch this over to the cheese cam mode so you can see from above. If anyone has any questions, just write them in the chat. I'm reading the chat as we go so I can answer them for you. All right. So we're going to start with our cheeses. Before we make our cheese board, we want to be able to prep everything so that it's easy to construct and easy for our guests to graze. So as you can tell, we have a really fun design here. We're making a wine bottle out of cheese. So we want to be able to prep our cheese so that we can arrange it in this nice little shape. So the three cheeses we have are Brie. This is a French Brie. You can tell, look at that nice creamy interior. So Brie has flavors of butter, creme fraiche, notes of mushrooms. The outer layer is called the rind. And so this is a bloomy rind. And this actually adds a nice earthy flavor to the Brie. Some people don't prefer the rind. I love the rind. I think it's great. This is a cow's milk cheese. The longer you let it sit up to room temperature, the more kind of gooey it gets. Love that. Next, we have Gruyere. Gruyere is a Alpine style cheese from Switzerland. You can tell Le Gruyere, they always have this little label on the side. And this is a nutty, creamy, robust cheese. The more it ages, the more it develops flavor. So it's funny because when it's younger, it does have those notes of toasted hazelnut. As it gets older, it can develop notes of pineapple and kind of more sweeter tones. You can also find those little tyrosine crystals in Gruyere, which is that little crunch when you take a bite into it. So good. This is also a cow's milk cheese. So we got 2 cow's milk. And then we have a goat cheese. This is Drunken Goat. So this is a aged goat cheese. You can tell that it is a little bit firm. It's like semi-firm. And the rind is washed in red wine. So that's a little nice, fun wine homage. So goat cheese is a little bit lighter in flavor than cow's milk cheese. Cow's milk cheese tends to be a little bit grassy, whereas goat's cheese can be a little bit more acidic, especially in a young goat cheese, so like a fresh chev. So this one, you can also tell in the color, goat cheese tends to be lighter in color, where cow's milk cheese tends to be a little bit more yellow. So these are our 3 cheeses. When you make a plate, you want to make sure you have a variety. So I chose a soft cheese, 2 hard cheeses, 2 cow's milk, a goat. You just want some sort of variation to help kind of diversify your plate. So we will be building this wine bottle. I'll show you again. And to do that, we want to make sure that all of our cheese is the same width. So to start, I'm going to base that width off of the Drunken Goat. So let's start with the Drunken Goat. And we don't really need too many slices for this, just because the wine bottle tends to get a little long pretty quickly. You can always make more slices to eat on the side while you're making the plate. But this is shaped like a wedge. So I'm just going to cut a triangle. And let's do like 2 triangular wedges. Perfect. And then I'm going to cut these in half, like so. And this way, we can kind of stack them like so. And that's going to be our base of the wine bottle. So we want the other cheeses to be this width apart. So you don't have to put this on your plate just yet. You can leave this here as a guide. Again, the rest of the cheese we can use to eat. I'll be eating that. And next we can take our Brie. So my Brie is sort of similar in width. If it's not, if you have like a large wedge of Brie, just kind of line it up and try to cut it so that it is the same width. But what I'm doing with here is I just want to cut 4 slices. So I'm just going 1, 2, actually let's do 3 slices. So we don't want this bottle to be too long. Perfect. And then again, we have cheese to eat for later. And then lastly, with our Gruyere, the Gruyere is going to act as the bottom of the wine bottle, the top of the wine bottle, and the cork. So you want to have a little bit of a thicker piece. This actually lines up perfectly here for me. So just push this up a little bit. So I'll cut half of it for here, half for the top, and then I have another piece on the side that I will use for my cork. So let's see. So half. And All right, so it's all aligned. Look how satisfying that is. So pretty. And then we will cut a little extra piece for the cork, okay? So this is not plated yet, this is just prep. So we are not putting this on our board yet. You can honestly just put it to the side for now, that we have it all set. And next we will prep our cucumbers. So the cucumbers is the most, I'd say, involved part of this plate. Let's see. Let's kind of get some of this off of here. All right. So with the cucumbers, we are making them into the wings of the Naked Wine logo. And as you can tell, they're a little bit thin. They kind of fold up to make this wing shape. And to do that, I have Persian cucumber, and I'm going to cut it into sixths. So basically, we want to go directly, I'm using my smaller knife for this. I'm going to go directly across. And then we can even, so you cut it in half. You can cut it into fourths, but I might cut it into, so we cut it in half and then we do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we want these like thin slices to look like this. And if you have a English cucumber, which is a little bit bigger, just cut it in half and then cut it in half again like I did to this, and then just keep cutting it into quarters until you get these thin strips. So cut it in half. All right, perfect. So for this, we want 8 slices on each side, so 16 slices total. So you can do some chopping now. It's a fun therapeutic activity to cut your cucumbers. In the meantime, as you're chopping, I'm going to transfer this to the actual cheese board. So we're going to do a little bit of switcheroo because this is my prep plate, and then I have the cheese plate to build everything on. So I'm going to take this away for a minute and then place it. Our nice lazy Susan. So when you make a cheese plate, you can really make it on any flat surface. That's what I love to say. Something like this. This is a lazy Susan that I got. It's fun because you can twist it around if you have guests over. It's very customizable. Just move my items around for a minute. Another thing that I tend to do with lazy Susans is just like stick a bit of paper towel under here so it doesn't move, because in these types of situations, when I'm teaching a workshop, I don't really want it to move. So we have it nice and sturdy. All right, so this is our base. We are going to start building the wine bottle from those items that you just cut of the cheese. So to start, we can start at the bottom of the board with a piece of Gruyere, like so. And we're just going to center everything directly upward. So next I'm going to do 2 slices of Drunken Goat. And you can leave a little bit of space in between too. I think that looks kind of nice. Next, we're going to do a slice of Brie. Perfect. And then again, 2 more Drunken Goat. And then we can do another slice of Brie here. And you know what? I'm going to actually move this up a little bit so we can center it on this plate. I'm going to add another slice of Brie in here. Okay. And then for the top of our bottle, we have another piece of Gruyere. And then for the cork, we got our Gruyere. Perfect. There's our wine bottle. It's looking good. So you can also make your wine bottle any way you want. You don't have to copy me directly. That's the beautiful thing about a cheese board. It's up to your own creativity and your own interpretation. So this is how I've pictured the wine bottle to look like. You can do it any way you wish. I also want to add a little bit. So this is actually like the stem of the wine bottle, or the, oh my gosh, what's it called? You guys know. This part. And I'm going to actually add a cork with a cracker later on. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, just so we have space for that cork up top. You'll see it come together. Perfect. So this is step one of cheese. Cheese by numbers is the cheese. So we have our variety of cheese laid out on the plate. And now it's time for step two, which is meat. So if we go back to our little sheet, meat is prosciutto. So we're going to make these nice little prosciutto roses for our cheese plate and disperse them around the outer perimeter. I have some prosciutto Italiano here.
No. That's my favorite.
And prosciutto is a little bit difficult to deal with as a folding meat just because it is very delicate. So I always suggest with prosciutto, you fold it when it's cold. So take it, place it in the freezer for 5 minutes and then work with it that way. But what I like to do is I'll take my slice, fold it in half, and then just roll it into a circle. Just like that. And I had a little piece kind of fall off as well, so I can fold that and then just wrap it around as a little petal. So then you have that little nice prosciutto flower. So I'm going to place this at the top of my board, like so. You can use some pressure just to kind of place it down. And we are going to do this with 4 slices of prosciutto. So pretty much every corner, if there are corners on a round board, every corner of the board. So again, I'm wrapping it up like this, and then placing it on the board. Pretty. If you're working with salami, it's a little bit different. I would suggest folding salami when it's actually at room temperature because it's less of a delicate meat. So if you're making, I coined a term called the salami river, which refers to salami flowing down the center of a cheese plate. So if you make a salami river, I would say have it be room temp. That's probably the easiest. So I'm going to place on one side and then one more slice. So not only are these cheese plates aesthetically pleasing, they also have thoughtful pairings. So everything we're putting on this plate, although we are, making it look really nice and a lot of it is about the aesthetics, we'll get to the pairings as well. Everything that is on the plate is intentional. So you want to think about when you're making a cheese plate, what is your intention behind the plate? And what do you want to kind of show your guests? What flavors do you want to highlight? I'm going to wrap this with a little bit more so you can make that rose shape. Cute. I might wrap this one too. So I'm basically taking like a little bit more prosciutto and then just wrapping it around the outside to make like a little petal. Awesome. Okay, so we have our cheese and we have our meat on the plate, and that's step 1 and step 2. So next we are going to step 3, which is our produce. So produce on this board covers everything from cucumbers, blueberries, blackberries, golden raisins. And this is when our cucumber wings take flight. So this is sort of a difficult part just because you want to make sure that your cucumbers are evenly spaced out on the plate so that they can make this wing shape. You can always like move around your prosciutto and whatnot, but I'll show you how I'm going to do it. So I'm taking one of my slices and placing it just right next to the Gruyere here. So that's kind of like the top of the wing. And another thing you can do is use a knife to kind of trim this like so. You can also add a little bit of a bend just to have that wing fly up a little bit. It's up to you. And then we connect this at the bottom. And I'll do the same on the other side. So I have my wing going up on one side and then a wing coming down below. So we don't want these wings to connect because as you can see on the map again, there's space in between the cheese and the cucumbers, so we can fill it in with the produce items. So again, like you can take your knife and kind of trim it a little bit so that that space stays intact. And then again, I'm going to connect the wing kind of facing upwards a little bit on a diagonal, like so. And then once again, like so. And I'm going to trim so it connects. So this is where cheese plating becomes cheese art because this really takes it to the next level. And when I talk about when you're making a cheese plate, having an intention, that's kind of like, what is your theme of the board and how do you achieve that theme for the board? So when I was creating this concept with Naked Wines, I really wanted to figure out a way to emulate the logo of the flying wine bottle, but I want to do it in a way with items that you can eat and you can use for the pairings. So something like cucumbers work really well when you're trying to create a shape, just because they are very linear. Whereas something like prosciutto or salami works well if you're trying to do more curvy shapes. So that's why with the salami river, it works really well using salami, because you're able to fold it and kind of curve it into a river formation. So just think about like what kind of produce items or meat items or whatever you can use to create these types of curving and straight angles. And then I'm going to move this over a little bit to make my last wing. And we can connect. This one's a little short. I might get a longer one. Let's see. Cut it at the end. Perfect. All right, so cucumber wings are down. They're looking good. This bottle is ready to take flight. And next I'm going to fill in each wing here, alternating with blueberries, golden raisins, blueberries, golden raisins. So I'll take my blueberries and just fill in these little gaps here. And you can start like stacking it on top of the wings if you want. The thing about cheese plates, which is fun, is you can always use height. So you can work up. I also like to use boards that have a lip around the edge sometimes so that items don't fall off, especially blueberries. These cucumbers are acting as a really nice barrier for the blueberries, because see, one just rolled off. It's holding it in place. And in the cheese by numbers method, step 3 produce, I always like to say this is when we paint with our produce. So when you're starting out with cheese by numbers with the first 2 steps of cheese and meat, the colors tend to be a little bit muted. You know, we have yellow and we have white from the cheese. We also have some pinks and reds from the meat, or if you're using like turkey, that's still kind of more of like a white yellow color. So with produce, we can add in all this really bright, colorful texture to the plate. It also adds an element of juiciness with the fresh fruit. That's why I love making cheese boards in the summertime, because you can really utilize fruits that are in season. And then in the winter, as we're heading into fall, I always like to use dried fruits. So something like dried apricots, golden raisins like we have on this plate, dried cherries are great. All right, so our blueberries are in. Looking good. All right, perfect. Next, we have our golden raisins, and we are filling this in as well. And just fill in all of the gaps of these wings that we have here, so it looks very full and abundant. Awesome. So we're taking something that, you know, in its individual parts looks pretty basic, but then when we put it together in this fun Naked Wines logo, it looks awesome. All right, cool. And then with our blackberries, we're just going to place them on the outer edges next to the prosciutto. We'll do one here, and we'll do one over here. And then I'm going to add one down at the bottom too. All right, perfect. So step 3 produce is complete. Now it's time for step 4, which is our crunch. So I have these mini toasts, and I'm going to use one of these as the cork. So I'm going to just break it in half and add it to the top of my little wine bottle to put our cork there, which looks so fun. And then the rest, I'm going to alternate my mini toasts and my truffle toasts around the edges for our pairings. And this just kind of completes the aesthetic of the plate. So with step 4 of Cheese by Numbers, this covers everything from crunchy items. So that can be whether it's bread, nuts, crackers. You can do like chocolate if you're doing more of like a sweet cheese plate. That all falls under the crunch category of Cheese by Numbers. All right, perfect. So now on to step 5 of Cheese by Numbers, which is dips. So this is where you would place your honey on the side and then serve it with the cheese plate as we serve it. If you wanted to put it on the plate, you can take a little jar of ramekin and place it somewhere, but we don't really have a lot of space on here because we have so much going on. So I would consider serving your honey on the side of your cheese plate. And then last but not least, step 6 is garnish. I love to garnish my plates with fresh herbs, edible flowers. Here I have some fresh thyme. And this just adds like a really nice pop of color to the cheese plate and brings it from being just a cheese plate to a tablescape. So I'm just kind of setting this around the edges of the board to tie it all together and have that nice color coming in. All right, beautiful. Would you look at that? Looks so nice. So before we get into the cheese pairings and the wine pairings, we are going to just do a tiny photography lesson because, you know, every good charcuterie board needs to be photographed. And believe it or not, every photo in my book was taken with my iPhone. I take most of my photos on Instagram with my phone anyways, and I asked my publisher if that was acceptable, and they said, yeah, go for it. So I will teach you how you can take the perfect photo. So you want a clean backdrop and indirect natural light. So right now I have a big window across from me. That light is coming in really nicely. And I have this white backdrop. So there's not a lot of distraction going on because the plate is already so colorful and beautiful. We don't want too much going on in the background. And you can take your phone, open it up to photo. And what I'm going to do is literally just go bird's eye view over the cheese plate and take a picture. But I'm going to stand up because I have to get this whole plate in there. And I'll show you in just a second what that looks like. All right, so this is literally directly out of my phone. Looks great. Something that I like to do is like a little bit of editing here. So if you go to, there's an app that I love called Foodie, F-O-O-D-I-E. And I could write that in the chat too. And this is a simple photo editing app. You don't want to do anything too crazy just because the cheese board looks so great already. But you'll open up the photo into Foodie, and there's all these filters at the bottom. So the filters, they just give you kind of a basic zhuzh to the plate. So for example, I'll click this one here. Just makes it a little bit brighter. And I think I could probably show you this better on my other screen. Hello. Look at that. So pretty. So that's directly out of my camera. And anyone can take a beautiful photo. So if you've made your cheese plate, I know I went a little fast, but if we have any expert speed cheese platers in the chat, I would love to see your plate. If you can hold up a photo or the actual board, if you made one, would love to see what you guys created. And then we will get into our pairings. Oh, beautiful, Morgan. That looks awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to scroll and see everyone. So cool. Oh my gosh. Deborah's. Oh my God, David. Wow. Jimmy looking great. So cool. Darnell, love that. This is so fun. It's crazy too, because it's like everyone has slightly different ingredients, you know, everyone has their own style behind their cheese board, and they all come out slightly different, which I love, because it's almost like one of those paint and sip classes where it's like the painters in the front of the room, you're all copying them, but every photo is different. That's why cheese boards are so special, because they can really capture your creativity, which is so fun. Amazing. So if you guys do have Instagram and want to tag me and Naked Wines, feel free, we'll repost in our stories. I'm at that cheese plate and Naked Wine is at Naked Wines USA. So we would love to see your creations. But going back to Cheese Cam, awesome. All right, so now we are getting to the fun stuff, eating the plate, which is the best part. So let me just pin this real quick. Awesome. Okay, so the first pairing that we're going to do, we're going to go through 3 different bites, and 3 different bites paired with 3 different wines. And Kim from Naked Wines can come in and chat about the other wines that are on the sheet and that you guys got in the mail. But right now we're just going to focus on 3 in depth, just so I can kind of show you guys what wines I like to pair with what cheeses. So we have 3 cheeses, 3 wines. So first we're going to start with our Brie. So what I want you to do is take a piece of your Brie, and before we make this bite, let's try the Brie without anything. So without the wine, without any of the pairings. So when you take a bite of the Brie, you want to smell it first. Take a little bite, hold it in your mouth for a minute, chew it and swallow it, and just taste all of those flavors come to the surface. So I'm gonna do that. So this Brie, very buttery, very creamy, salty, cultured butter I get notes of, also that mushroom from the rind. Tastes amazing. So with this one, we are going to pair with the Michaud Columbia Valley Sauvignon Blanc right here. So let me get a glass, pour a little sip. Beautiful. So this is made by Justin and Katie Michaud, who are 2 of Washington's most talented young winemakers. It has notes of citrus, ripe grapes, tropical fruit. It's a really refreshing summer wine. So now what I want to do is take a bite of the Brie first, then take a sip of the wine separately. So take a bite of the Brie, swallow it, take a sip of the wine, swallow it, and then take a bite of the Brie with a sip of the wine together and see how different that tastes. So good. So you can really tell once you combine the 2 together, how much different that flavor changes. You know, alone, this is a sweet, tropical, light, refreshing Sauvignon Blanc, and then you have that creamy, savory, salty Brie, and together it just makes a whole new flavor pairing. It reminds me of like Ratatouille when he takes the bites and in his head there's like the fireworks going off. That's what I feel when I have wine and cheese. So what we're going to do is actually make a bite out of this, because as you have your cheese plate here, we want to figure out, okay, well, how do we eat this? It looks so great. You know, we have all the things that we need. How do we make the perfect bite? So this bite that we're going to pair with the Michaud Columbia Valley Sauvignon Blanc is Brie, prosciutto, and a cucumber. So I'm going to take my piece of Brie here, and you can put this on a cracker, a little toast. I'm also taking my knife, cutting a little bit of cucumber, put that on top, and then you can take a little bit of prosciutto, mess up your rose, and put that on top. So this bite here I love because it's both savory yet refreshing, and then paired with the wine, it adds in some sweetness. So when we pair, we want to think of all of the flavor profiles. We have sweet, salty, tangy, umami, bitter. And with this bite, we have that refreshing texture from the cucumber too that really rounds it out. So I feel like the cucumber here is almost like our bridge between the bite and the wine, because the wine is tangy, fruity, refreshing. The bite is pretty savory, creamy, salty. And then that cucumber is the bridge between the 2. So try a bite of this, wash it down with Sauvignon Blanc. This is an excellent pairing. Awesome bite. So that's bite number 1. Place that over here so you remember. All right, awesome. So on to bite number 2, we are going into Gruyere territory. And I know that we have Alex Barber in the chat, who is the maker of this Miriam Chenin Blanc. This wine is awesome, and it's a great pairing with Gruyere because it has, when you think about wine and cheese pairings, you want to think about what would you pair the cheese with. Gruyere goes great with apples and with kind of like more tangy elements. And this has really nice green apple bite to it. It has juicy pears. It also brings out that sweetness that I talked about when Gruyere ends up aging, it kind of has those notes of like tropical fruits and stone fruits. So this Chenin has all of those nice notes. So again, what I want you to do, I already have the Chenin in my other glass, this one. I want you to take a bite of Gruyere, take a sip of the Chenin, and then do it together. And let me know what you taste. Ooh, I definitely taste the nuttiness in the Gruyere. It really is a lot more of a bite on the palate. And it's interesting because, you know, Gruyere and Brie are both made from cow's milk, but how different are they? You know, like they're made in such different methods. Gruyere is made in the high pastures of the Alpine meadows in Switzerland. A lot of the times, Gruyere, you can taste the kind of the notes of the grassiness in the wildflowers that the cows consume in the summer, which is kind of cool. And then having it mix in with that Chenin is so beautiful because it really brings in a sweetness to cut that sharpness on your palate, which I love. Oh yeah, that nuttiness too. So to make a bite with this, we're going to do Gruyere. So I'm just gonna take my same piece. I'm gonna use the cork as my cracker. And then I wanna add golden raisins and a little bit of honey. Okay, so our bite here, this has our nice notes of, you know, I think the golden raisins really tie in that sweetness element that the wine has, but then the Gruyere really cuts through all that sweetness with some sharp. And then the honey as well adds, again, sweetness to tie in the whole bite together, whereas our cracker gives us that crunch at the end of the day, which always is a nice texture element. So this is bite number 2. And there goes my raisins. Beautiful. All right. Bite number 3, we are going to go into our Drunken Goat territory. And this is what I want to pair with the Chris Baker Wilmette Pinot Noir. Look at this label. Sorry, my bottles are open, so I'm not trying to spill them. Such a cool label. That's the thing about Naked Wines too. When I got my delivery, I was so excited to see all these labels because they're so unique and different. And I'm such a visual person, as you can tell, that labels really stick out for me. So this Pinot Noir has notes of dark berries with spice. This is going to be a perfect balance for our Drunken Goat that also is washed in red wine. So it has a nice complement there. So again, let's pour ourselves a little glass, a little sip. Beautiful color too. Look at that. So nice. All right, so I'm going to take a bite of my Drunken Goat, a sip of my wine, a bite and a sip. Ooh, truffle honey, that sounds amazing. Oh, wow, I love that pairing. Drunken Goat is interesting because when you bite it, you think it's going to be similar to a Gruyere just because it's the same texture, similar texture, but that goat cheese is so light and so refreshing, yet it has like some deeper notes to it because it's aged. And I love the Drunken Goat with the Pinot Noir because Pinot Noir it's not overly intense, you know, like you don't really want to pair a really big, bold red wine with something light like a goat or a Brie, but something with the Pinot Noir, it's light, it's fruity, it has those dark berries, it has some spice. It really ties in well with the Drunken Goat and doesn't completely overpower the flavor. So with this bite, we're going to do Drunken Goat, blueberries, and prosciutto. So once again, messing up my rose, it's okay. Take a cracker. These are actually truffle crackers, which I never heard of before, but I saw them at the grocery store and I was like, this looks interesting. Love that. All right, so we're going to do prosciutto, Drunken Goat, and a blueberry. So I'm adding the blueberry to this because, not just because it looks pretty, because it does, but also it adds a nice texture. So again, when we're thinking of our perfect bites, we want some juiciness. You know, we have that crunch of the cracker, we have the savory prosciutto and the cheese, but then that little pop of berry is always nice to add to our bite. And then our berry, just like how our cucumber was our bridge between the bite and the wine, our berry is our bridge between the bite and the wine. So without the berry, we have two separate ideas. You know, we have very creamy, very salty, savory, and then we have our fruity, light-bodied wine. This berry kind of ties in those flavors of the berry taste in the wine, which works beautifully. So that is bite number 3. Perfect. So our wine bottle is sadly destroyed, but that's what it's for. The best part about a cheese plate is eating it. So get in there and destroy your creation. We got a photo of it, which is great. So now we're going to open up the chat for some questions if you guys have any. I think Kim's going to come back on here. Let's see. Awesome. And I would love to know what your favorite bite was, your favorite pairing. You can say in the chat.
Yes, if you have a favorite, put it in the chat. Marissa, thank you. That was fantastic. We do have some questions. I have mine here too, don't worry. So first and foremost, let me pull up my list here. We got some pre-questions from Angels. We also have some live. So we'll try and get them all answered. If they're not answered, you guys can obviously follow us on social, DM us. We will answer them after if we don't get to them today. So first, Shelly wants to know what your favorite type of board is. That could be to make, taste, all of the above.
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. I have so many favorites. I always tend to like the boards that really focus on the pairings. Like my favorite is to create a board and show it to friends and kind of guide them through like a pairing experience that they wouldn't expect. Like I did one the other day that was, it had jalapeno, like stuffed jalapenos on it, which was something that, it was a recipe. It's actually going live on my Instagram next week, but it had these jalapenos that I stuffed with like cream cheese and cheddar and chives and all these spices. And then I took my blowtorch and like flambéed it and made it all crispy. And I plated that with kind of lighter crudité. And that was a fun one because I feel like it was a mixture between like sort of really savory, like party food. Like it almost reminded me of like Super Bowl food, but then plated in a really nice, pretty way. So anything that has like a unique flavor, an unexpected pairing that is plated in a way that's really beautiful. Those are probably my favorite types. Also like the themed plates are fun. In the winter, I did a charcuterie wreath. So it was a wreath made of charcuterie for Christmas. Those are always a crowd pleaser.
Love that. Counter question. In your book, do you have a favorite?
Ooh, where is the book? It's like picking a favorite child. Okay.
I know.
I do have a favorite. Also, I just started writing my second book yesterday. So if you guys have any suggestions of what you want to see, let me know. It's also insider scoop. You heard it here first. It's not coming out until next year because books take a long time to write and to print. But I'll have some fun stuff out for Christmas this year, so do not worry. This is my favorite, the Varada Bar. This one's just so fun because look how colorful it is, and there's so many pairing options. It's like choose your own Varada adventure on here, and I'll show you the step by step. And these illustrations are done by my friend Syrah, who I actually met. She actually works at The Late Show still. So when I was working there for 4 years, as I was running that cheese plate, she was the receptionist, and then she worked her way up to now being in the research department, and her hobby was illustrating. And so I saw her like literally sitting at her desk illustrating something for The Late Show for their Instagram. And I was just like, have you ever tried to draw a cheese plate? And so she made my first merch item, and then I brought her on board to do the whole book, and she's going to do the second book also, which is very exciting.
Yeah, super talented for sure. A question that just came up in the chat from Philip that I kind of wanted to ask any of our winemakers who are here. So Dave, David, Alex, feel free to jump in. But he's asking, are there any wines you can pair with spicy foods? So Marissa, to your note of like stuffed jalapenos and jalapeno honey and all this fun stuff, and a spice fanatic myself, any recommendations, winemakers? And you guys can put it in the chat too, because we can circle back. So wines, spicy food. Okay, perfect.
So spicy
Hey,
food
David.
is always good, great fun. You know, it's it's funny how, your spicy foods, you tend to go with a nice ice cold beer. But for wines, there is a similarity in the sense that the lower alcohol wines go really nicely with the spicy foods. Surprised Alex didn't jump in here because I think her Chenin Blanc is a perfect pairing for a lot of those, because usually when you have a lot of alcohol, it kind of amps up a lot of the capsaicins in the spicy food, and then it really just kind of turns a flamethrower on. So it's nice to have that cool, refreshing white wine to go with a spicy foods.
Oh, I like Riesling and Gewürztraminer, but can't be jalapeno hot though. Better with Thai food, things like that. If it's going to be jalapenos, get a beer.
It's Alex, and I obviously love spicy food, and think it's a perfect pairing to put Chenin Blanc, Riesling, Gewürz, any low alcohol wine, like David said, and very chilled, and then it can warm up in your glass. But a nice cold beverage is always nice.
Thank you, winemakers. So Marissa, back to you. Brittany wants to know, what is your all-time most versatile cheese that you've put on a plate before?
Ooh, probably Camembert, honestly, because you can do so many things with a Camembert. You can serve it at room temperature and it tastes beautiful. You can bake it with so many different toppings. I have a baked Brie or baked Camembert that I did with truffle honey and rosemary and walnuts. And now that we're entering the warm or the colder months, it's the best. So probably something like a Camembert, because you can bake it. Even Gruyere too. I love the way that Gruyere develops over time. Like, honestly, if you do a taste test and try a younger Gruyere versus like an older, maybe aged, 14 months Gruyere, you can really taste the differences between the flavors. And Gruyere is also great melted cheese. So that works wonderfully in a fondue, or if you're making a grilled cheese. Gruyere is one of my favorites for that. So probably Gruyere or a Camembert.
And to that point, cheese and wine are perfect together, and they synchronize flawlessly, because with cheese that can get better over time, like Gruyere, like you said.
Yes,
just like wine.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay, next question. There are actually a couple of comments on this. I know you're in Brooklyn. Is there a specific market or place or cheese shop, just in general, maybe when you travel, that you like to get your cheeses from?
Yeah, so I always love to go to my local cheese shops here in New York. If anyone is in New York or is around New York, Bedford Cheese Shop is a favorite. There is Murray's Cheese. There's so many small cheese shops too, like Brooklyn Larder is amazing in Brooklyn. There's actually a brand new cheese shop opening in my neighborhood, which I'm very excited about, called Big Night. I think it's a store for like party supplies, which is perfect. I'm like, great, right there. But honestly, like, if you go to Whole Foods, most Whole Foods have a really great cheese buying department, and a lot of them will have local cheeses from the area. Like, one of my favorite things to do is go to the Whole Foods in Williamsburg and look at the local New York cheeses, or even just get in a car and drive upstate and visit the dairy farms up there. That's like a hobby of mine. But even something like, if you don't have a huge budget, I love Trader Joe's cheeses. They have a great selection. You want to just, like, I think with cheese, you want to splurge on some of the cheese just so that it's high quality, and you're supporting local cheesemakers, you're supporting the art of cheese making. But if you don't have the budget to get all fancy cheese, you can get some and then supplement with a little bit more lower end cheeses. But yeah, I'd say definitely look up your local cheese shop, because cheesemongers know everything, and you can walk in there and say, hey, I'm a fan of cheddar, and they'll give you 7 different cheeses that are similar cow's milk aged cheeses that you would never even expect to be similar to cheddar, but they know. So that's always, cheesemongers are your best friend in that situation.
Cool, good to know. And to counter that, Marisol is asking if you have any recommendations on like any cheese clubs, so kind of like Naked Wines,
Yes.
subscriptions, things like that.
Curds & Co. is based out of Boston. That's a good one. I know Murray's has cheese boxes and cheese clubs as well. There's, they have a much bigger selection. Jasper Hill, I believe, does one. They're a great creamery up in Vermont. I know Cowgirl Creamery does one too, and I believe that they have teamed up with oh my gosh, Cypress Grove. Wine's getting to my head, no I'm kidding. So Cypress Grove and Cowgirl Creamery, both in Northern California, they have some nice boxes as well. Cypress Grove does mostly goat cheese, where Cowgirl does cow's milk. So those are good. But I think if you look, my friend Erica has a great resource. I remember in COVID, I'll send you the link, Kim, after this, and you can send it out. She in COVID compiled a complete list of cheese boxes to support local cheesemakers and whatnot. So we can send that out.
Love that.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah.
Love clubs, love wine clubs. So fun to get a box of
Awesome.
delivered to your door.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in these times, it makes life a little bit easier, right?
Great.
Okay, next up, someone wants to know, well, someone was saying they're going to save some of their wines for fall. And do you have any items that you put on your cheese plates for fall that are some of your favorites?
Yes. So
Whether that's cheese or decor.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can always throw gourd on a cheese plate as a decoration. I actually just posted a plate today for fall. I don't know if it's too early because it is still August, but I'm one of those people who loves fall. I'm just ready for it.
Well, pumpkin spice lattes are here, so it's not too early, right? So you're good.
But I love using like an aged Gouda on a cheese board in the fall, especially if you can find like an aged Gouda that is colored with annatto, so like it's more orange. Same thing with like one of those orange aged cheddars, just because the color looks great. But an aged Gouda in particular has these like nice toasted hazelnut caramelly notes that really just make me feel cozy. I also love using things like apple butter or I had smoked maple syrup the other day on a cheese board, and that was just insane. Like smoked maple syrup with cheddar. It was divine. Anything that you can kind of loop in apples or dried fruits like dried apricots, dried figs. You can do, if it's Halloween, you can do like a nice dark chocolate and cheese pairing board, which could be fun. Because chocolate too, I feel like has so many similar characteristics of cheese in the way that it's made, like really good chocolate. So, and with wine too, you can just do chocolate, cheese, and wine all together. But yeah, I'd say like aesthetically working in the color scheme of warmer tones. So whether that's like red, orange, brown, a little bit of green, and less of that like vibrant summer produce. I think sadly the season is ending soon.
Did you say smoked maple syrup? Just want to be clear.
Yeah, smoked maple syrup is so good.
Where does one get that? You can send that link to me too.
That's a great question. I had it at a vineyard in New Hampshire, but I will find it for you. I'll figure out how to make it. Put it in the next cookbook.
Yeah, do that. Speaking of putting something fun in your next book, which you may or may not already do, but Tara loved the bites section of this experience. Is that something you plan to or would want to incorporate a little bit more in maybe the next book?
Yes, absolutely. So ever since I've been doing these cheese classes virtually since April of 2020, I've ended every class with these bites, and I do them in my in-person classes too, but I didn't put it in the book just because at the time, I don't know why I didn't, but in this next one, every single plate is going to have 3 different bites. So similar to what we just did in class. So you can look at the plate, see what to pair together. And then I'm going to do a drink pairing with every plate as well. And then each plate will also have a longer description as to like, again, that intention behind the plate. And we'll have a step-by-step with the cheese board illustration. And I'll also do many more smaller plates. So like single serve cheese plates for 2, as well as bigger grazing tables, because hopefully when this comes out, we can do that again. So there'll be a lot more and a lot of variety.
Awesome. Okay, we've got 2 more questions. And again, any questions we don't get to, DM us or Marissa on the Instagram and we'll get those answered. But One of two. Layla, I like the Brie with the Chenin Blanc. We are vegetarians and use tofurkey deli slices instead of prosciutto. Do you have any other vegetarian replacements?
Yeah, so it's difficult sometimes with the soy meats just because they don't usually always taste like the flavor you want it to taste like. I've found luck sometimes with like sauteing vegetarian sausages. So getting that like brown, like savory umami element from a flavored like vegan Italian sausage or something like that. But something that I noticed is if you can incorporate some sort of brine on your plate that somewhat mimics meat in a sense. So like whether that's marinated olives or roasted red peppers or cornichons, something that just like gives you that like bitey brininess can help loop in the flavors that meat usually has, because a lot of cured meat is mainly salty. So just trying to get that salty flavor in can help with the pairings.
Love that. And last but certainly not least, Elena, what would your go-to have ingredients for a grazing table be? She has a bridal shower in a month.
Oh, okay.
Well, her bridal shower.
Oh, well, congrats on your
No
bridal
pressure.
shower. That's awesome. So my go-to for grazing tables, I like to keep it simple just because grazing tables are a lot of work and a lot of prep, and you just want to make sure that you got everything. Like you don't want to get too over the top crazy with it because it will probably stress you out. So I like to do probably 5 to 6 cheeses, whether that is, and again, think about your variety here. So you can do a soft ripened goat cheese, you can do cheddar, Gruyere, Brie, Fontina, you can do mozzarella, feta, just kind of have a variety. And I like to separate all of that out so it has its own space. And you can build the cheese plate in the cheese by numbers method too, which helps. I do about 2 to 3 different types of charcuterie. So that could be coppa, salami, prosciutto, fold it, make your salami river, have that come to be. And then I like to add produce. So for that, I would do probably produce that's easy to consume. So probably stay away from like cherries or olives or anything with a pit, just because like you want to make sure that people don't have pits in their hands and they're putting them places. So I would do like cucumbers, strawberries, dried apricots, dried figs, blueberries. You could do cranberries, dried cranberries, anything that you can kind of easily prep and then place throughout the board. And then for my crunch, I always like to do a big basket of bread. So like just chopped, slice up French baguette, put that in a basket, and you can also insert crackers throughout the plate. I always like having a cracker plate on the side of my cheese plate just for easy refilling. And then you can add in like Marcona almonds or spiced walnuts for a little bit of a crunch and some more flavor. For dips, I would say fig jam is always a fan favorite. I would say honey, but that tends to get a little bit messy. So maybe stick towards the jam. So maybe like a mixed berry jam, or if it's the fall, you can do an apple jam, apple butter. And then garnish, you can do fresh herbs. I always like with grazing tables to take like a bud vase or like a little bit bigger of a vase, do a few of them on the table and put fresh flowers within the vases and then build the tablescape around it. So that way you don't have to put unedible flowers near the cheese. So that's a really nice way to also add height, because when you're making a grazing table, you want to have it be like a nice spread and have height to it. So you can also, before you build, maybe add like a few different crates and build cheese plates on the crates, and then below the crates, add some flowers in there. You can even add like tea light candles if you're getting fancy. So yeah, you can see my mind. I'm like, I love making grazing tables because it's literally just like a massive canvas to paint on.
Yeah, it's awesome. It makes the job fun for sure. And it's all about that perfect photo and making sure everyone gets a bite of everything on the table. So, well, to end, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I know this is really special for us at Naked and all of our angels and the new angels who are here. Thank you guys for being here. We hope you enjoy the wines and get to know the winemakers a little bit more. And Will says the term of the day is salami river. So love that. And I think that's very on brand. I mean, you did kind of create it. So genius.
I actually own the
Marissa,
to it. Fun fact.
You do own the trademark. Yes, I did know that. So you can tell all of your friends that
It's a fun
you
fact
all
about
met Marissa and took a class with her. But again, any questions we might have missed or comments or feedback,
and the book
let
is
me know.
That Cheese Plate Will
That
Change
cheese plate will change your life, and it definitely will.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun, and I love wine and I love cheese together, and it was so much fun trying all these wines. I will continue to drink these as the weekend goes on.
Awesome. Well, everyone raise your glass and to cheese, food, and all the wines. And thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks, Naked Wines.
Bye.
Bye.